used to think that winning the World Cup was the peak of my life, that lifting that trophy, hearing the crowd roar, and feeling the pride of an entire nation was the ultimate purpose I was meant to fulfill. And for a while I believed it. I had achieved everything I set out to do in the world of cricket. I had the fame, the recognition, and the applause. But deep down, when the celebrations faded and the noise settled, I began to hear something else. Something quieter, but far more. A voice inside me kept asking, is this it? Is this all I was meant to do? With the platform I've been given, that question started to haunt me, because while I had achieved individual success, I couldn't ignore the stark contrast I saw every day in the lives of ordinary people around me. Children born without opportunity, families crushed under poverty, a system that favored the connected and ignored the honest. I started to realize that the real challenge, the real mission, wasn't to win games. It was to fight for a future where every child in my country could dream and, more importantly, believe that their dream was possible. Success had given me a voice, but it hadn't yet given me meaning. That only came when I looked around and saw how desperately we needed change. And not just surface level change. I'm talking about deep, transformative change that touches every village, every school, every institution. The kind of change that doesn't come from outside but from within, from the people themselves. And that's when everything shifted. The life I had known suddenly felt too small. I knew I had to step into something greater, something that wasn't about me but about us. It wasn't an easy decision. Walking away from comfort, from a life where everything was predictable and secure, into a world of uncertainty and struggle. It takes more than courage. It takes conviction. You're no longer playing a game with rules. You're stepping into a battleground where the stakes are real, where people's futures depend on the choices you make. I had to prepare myself for a different kind of challenge, one where victories weren't measured in runs or wickets, but in lives uplifted, minds awakened, and systems reformed. I had to unlearn many things I thought I knew, because leadership in politics isn't about winning a match. It's about carrying the burden of people's hopes. It's about listening to voices that have long been ignored. And it's about standing tall, even when the very system you're trying to fix turns against you. But the one thing I brought with me from the field was the belief that nothing is impossible when your heart is in the fight. I had seen what discipline, focus, and teamwork could achieve on the field. Now, it was time to bring that same spirit to a different kind of arena, one where the goal was justice, dignity, and equality. And let me tell you something. Once you find a mission that is bigger than your fears, bigger than your comfort, and bigger than your own life, you are never the same again. You wake up with purpose, you speak with fire, you act with faith. Because now, you're not just living for yourself, you're living for the future. For those who don't yet have a voice, for those who've lost hope, and for those who believe that even one person with the right intention can set off a chain reaction that changes everything. This wasn't the life I had imagined, but it became the life I was called to live. There's a moment in every person's life where something shifts, where you see the world not just as it is, but as it could be. For me, that moment didn't arrive with fanfare or applause. It came quietly, like a whisper that wouldn't leave me alone. I had seen enough of the world to know how things worked, how power circulated in the hands of the few, how injustice had been normalized, and how the dreams of ordinary people were constantly being crushed under a system that only served itself. And it hit me. If we kept waiting for someone else to fix this, we would wait forever. It wasn't one incident. It was a lifetime of watching people suffer while the powerful thrived, a lifetime of watching merit be ignored, truth be twisted, and lies rewarded. I remember meeting young people full of potential but suffocated by hopelessness. I remember traveling through areas where basic needs, clean water, decent education, proper health care were treated like luxuries. And I remember the frustration of hearing the same promises made year after year by the same people, only to see nothing change except their own fortunes. That's when I knew talking about change wasn't enough. Wishing for justice wasn't enough. If I truly believed in the values I spoke about, truth, dignity, fairness, then I had to step into the fire myself. I had to turn that whisper into action. That was the birth of the mission. Not a mission to gain power, but to challenge the very mindset that had trapped our nation in cycles of corruption, fear, and helplessness. And let me be honest, this mission didn't come with guarantees. In fact, everything and everyone around me said it would fail. I was told that politics was too dirty, that the system would swallow anyone who tried to fix it. But what they didn't understand is that I wasn't entering this fight to survive. I was entering it to transform. I didn't want to play by their rules. I wanted to rewrite them. I began with nothing but belief. No political family, no inherited structure, no hidden sponsors pulling strings. Just belief in the people, in our potential, and in a future that didn't have to look like our past. The early days were lonely, crowds were small, the media mocked, the elite dismissed me as naive, as if wanting integrity in leadership was some kind of joke. But I knew that the mission was bigger than their approval. I wasn't here to impress the powerful. I was here to awaken the powerless. That's when the real journey began. The road wasn't smooth. Every step forward was met with resistance. But slowly, people started to listen. Not because of grand slogans or empty speeches, but because I spoke what they had been feeling for years. I wasn't giving them new answers. I was giving them their voice back. I was holding up a mirror to a broken system and saying, we don't have to accept this, we deserve better. This mission changed everything, because once it started, there was no going back. I saw how deeply people yearn for justice. I saw the fire in the eyes of young students who refused to believe their future had to be limited. I saw mothers who had lost children to poverty and still stood strong, ready to support a cause that gave them hope. That kind of truth doesn't need translation. It connects human to human, heart to heart. And as the mission grew, it stopped being about one person. It became a collective cry for change. A movement fueled not by hate, but by hope. Not by revenge, but by a refusal to stay silent. That's when I knew this mission wasn't mine to control. It had become a force of its own, a reflection of a nation ready to rise. Because when you find the courage to act on what you believe, you don't just change your life, you light the spark that can change an entire country. When you stand up against a system built on fear and corruption, you quickly realize it doesn't just push back, it fights to destroy you. It doesn't matter how clean your intentions are or how sincere your mission is. The moment you begin to expose its cracks, the moment you begin to inspire people to question it, you become a threat. And that's exactly what I became. Not because I had weapons or wealth, but because I had something far more dangerous to a corrupt system. I had belief, and I was waking others up to believe too. The first attack isn't physical, it's psychological. They try to isolate you, ridicule you, make you doubt yourself. I was told over and over again that this couldn't be done, that I was too idealistic, that nothing would ever change. But I had seen how fear keeps nations shackled. I had seen how corruption survives not because it's strong, but because good people stay silent. And when they realized I wouldn't step back, they changed their strategy. They came after my character. They twisted facts, launched campaigns to discredit me, tried to paint me as the problem. Every lie had one goal: to break the connection between me and the people. But what they didn't understand is that I wasn't standing alone. I was standing on the strength of a nation's hopes. And that's not something you can erase with headlines or propaganda. The real fight wasn't in front of cameras. It was in the hearts of people. Every time someone chose truth over convenience, every time someone raised their voice against injustice, every time someone decided they would no longer be afraid, that was a victory. The system had ruled for decades by making people feel small, powerless, invisible. But now they were waking up. Now they were realizing that their voice mattered, that they could demand better, that fear could be broken. I met people in villages who had never voted before but said they would now because they finally believed their vote could bring change. I saw students who once thought politics was dirty, now marching in the streets, not for personal gain, but for the dream of a better country. I saw mothers, shopkeepers, laborers, ordinary people doing extraordinary things simply by saying we've had enough. But of course, the system didn't stop. The threats increased. The pressure grew. They tried to shut us down, to silence us, to break our spirit. And yes, there were moments that tested every ounce of strength I had. But every time I was pushed, I remembered the faces of those who had placed their trust in this mission. I remembered that this fight was never supposed to be easy. That real change demands real sacrifice. You see, the corrupt fear one thing above all: people who refuse to be afraid. Because once fear is broken, control is broken. Once people find the courage to speak truth, the lies collapse. Once people see the system for what it really is, it loses its power. That's why they attacked so hard. That's why they tried to silence not just me, but anyone who dared to stand with this movement. Because they saw what we were building, a nation that no longer bows to tyranny. We didn't come this far to turn back. We didn't rise to fall silent. The mission was never just to challenge individuals. It was to challenge the entire culture of impunity, of theft disguised as governance, of fear masquerading as order. And even if they try to block every path, we will carve new ones. Even if they try to erase our voices, we will speak louder. Because once people stop fearing the powerful lose all their power. When I first began this journey, people told me I was wasting my time. They said the poor didn't care, that the youth were too distracted, and that ordinary citizens didn't have the power to bring real change. But those voices didn't come from the ground, they came from the top. From those who had spent so long disconnected from the people that they had forgotten where real strength lies. I chose not to listen to them because I had seen something different. I had seen the hunger in the eyes of young people who just needed someone to believe in them. I had seen the quiet determination of men and women who had suffered in silence for years, but who, once awakened, would never go back to silence again. Empowering people doesn't mean handing them slogans. It means listening to them. It means looking them in the eye and saying, your life matters, your voice matters, your struggle matters. That's where real transformation begins, not in parliaments or press conferences, but in conversations held on the streets, in fields, in small rooms filled with big dreams. When I traveled across the country, through forgotten villages, through overcrowded cities, I didn't just speak, I listened. I listened to farmers who couldn't get fair prices. I listened to parents who couldn't afford to send their children to school. I listened to students with degrees but no jobs, and workers with talent but no opportunity. And I understood something very clearly. These people didn't need charity, they needed justice. They didn't want pity, they wanted a fair shot. The most powerful nations are not the ones with the biggest armies or tallest buildings. They're the ones where people feel seen, where the average citizen knows they have a stake in the system and that the system respects them back. That's what we were trying to build, a country where no one is invisible, where your background doesn't decide your future, where opportunity doesn't come through connections, but through merit. And for that, we had to go to the people, not just to campaign, but to reconnect them with their own power. There's a reason why the status quo tries to keep the public distracted and divided, because the people united are unstoppable. And I saw that unity begin to form. I saw young men and women who had never been involved in politics before, now organizing, educating, mobilizing. I saw them asking the hard questions, holding leaders accountable, refusing to accept the old answers. That kind of energy cannot be manufactured. It comes from belief. And once belief spreads, no force can stop it. I never promised miracles. I promised a movement, a shift in mindset. And what I saw across this journey was just that, a quiet revolution growing louder every day. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't always easy, but it was real and it was theirs. Because the moment people begin to believe that their voice matters, they start using it. The moment they feel heard, they start to speak louder. And when millions speak together, not in anger, but with purpose, that's when history begins to move. People ask me, what's your strategy? What's your formula? And I told them, it's simple. Trust the people. Give them the truth. Give them a vision that reflects their own lives and struggles. Then step back and let them lead. Because this mission was never about controlling people. It was about freeing them from the lies they were fed, from the limits they were taught to accept, from the fear that kept them quiet for so long. That's how change happens. Not when one person stands tall, but when millions rise together. When I would speak on international platforms, people often asked me, what kind of Pakistan do you dream of? And my answer was always simple. I want a country that stands with dignity, a country that walks its own path, makes its own choices, and refuses to be anyone's pawn. I didn't want us to just survive in the global system. I wanted us to stand tall within it, respected not because we follow orders, but because we stand by our principles. That dream, that vision was never just about politics. It was about identity, about restoring pride, confidence, and independence to a nation that had been told for too long that it needed to beg in order to move forward. The world respects strength, not the strength of weapons or wealth, but the strength of character. And when you carry yourself with integrity, when you speak truth without fear, people listen, even if they disagree. That's what I wanted for us. Not isolation, but partnership. Not dependency, but mutual respect. I believed and still believe that we can be both rooted in our own culture and values and also fully engaged with the world. These things are not opposites. They are necessary complements. Because only when you know who you are can you truly connect with others. Our history is rich. Our people are capable. But we were taught to think small, to depend on others, to feel inferior when we should have felt proud. That needed to change. That's why I spoke, not just to the powerful countries, but to our own people, reminding them that sovereignty is not just a word, it's a mindset. It means making decisions based on what is right for our people, not based on what someone else dictates. It means saying no when saying no is hard. And it means walking away from easy money if it comes at the cost of your self-respect. This mission wasn't about closing ourselves off from the world. It was about entering the world on our own terms, sharing what we believe in, learning from others, yes, but never losing ourselves in the process. I often admired how nations that rose from struggle built themselves by standing firm in their values. They didn't chase approval, they earned respect. And I wanted us to do the same, not just for pride, but because only then can we make decisions that truly serve our people without foreign agendas, without hidden strings. There's a powerful connection between sovereignty and justice. If a country can't control its own direction, how can it ever deliver fairness to its people? If decisions are made in foreign capitals, how can the dreams of a youth be fulfilled? That's why independence, real economic, political, and cultural independence was so important to me. I wasn't just thinking about policy, I was thinking about the soul of the nation. And I believed that a strong, self-reliant Akisina Pakistan would not only benefit us, it would contribute to global peace, to fairness, and to a more balanced world. Because the truth is, the world needs nations that speak from principle. It needs countries that aren't for sale. It needs leaders who won't compromise justice for short-term gains. I didn't want to be one more voice echoing what others wanted to hear. I wanted to be the voice that reminded people, East or West, that no country, no people are less than any other. That every nation has the right to live in dignity, to dream freely, and to build a future that reflects its own values. And I saw that message resonate not just at home but abroad. I saw people, even those who disagreed with me, respect the fact that I wasn't pretending to be something I wasn't. I wasn't trying to fit into their mold. I was standing for something. And that's what people remember. Not the speeches, not the numbers, but the courage to be authentic. Because when a nation finds its voice and refuses to let it be silenced, it doesn't just rise, it leads. There's something deeply powerful about standing at the edge of defeat and refusing to give in. There's something unshakable about looking around when everything seems lost. Your team scattered, your path blocked, your name dragged through the mud, and saying to yourself, no, this is not the end. That kind of strength doesn't come from titles or positions. It comes from conviction, from faith, from knowing that your mission was never about comfort, but about purpose. And if that purpose still lives inside you, then the fight is not over. I've stood in moments where everything I built was under attack, where every institution that was supposed to uphold justice was being used to bury it, where friends vanished in fear and lies spread faster than truth. But in those moments, I learned something valuable. It lived in the hearts of millions. It lived in the belief that this country deserves better. And as long as that belief remains, the mission is alive. People often ask, how did you keep going? The answer is simple. I remembered why I started. I didn't come into this to win applause. I didn't sacrifice everything just to be another name in a history book. I came because I could no longer stay silent while injustice thrived. I came because I wanted to give voice to the voiceless, strength to the weak, and courage to those who had forgotten their own power. And once you step into that fire, once you truly dedicate yourself to something greater than your own comfort, there's no turning back. Yes, there were moments of doubt, that's human, but in those moments, I saw something that renewed my strength every time. I saw the people. I saw children holding flags higher than their heads. I saw elderly men and women praying for change with tears in their eyes. I saw the young refusing to back down, refusing to be silenced, even when they were threatened, even when they were jailed. That kind of spirit doesn't come from politics. It comes from pain, from love, from an unbreakable bond with the soil you were born on. And if they were standing, then so would I. They tried to shut every door. They thought they could wear us down, inch by inch, until we had nothing left but silence. But we answered with resilience, with truth, with an unshakable will. We didn't fight back with hate. We fought back with hope. We didn't match their darkness. We brought light. And through every setback, every attack, every betrayal, we got stronger. Not because we were perfect, but because we were real. And in a world full of masks, that's what frightens them the most. People who refuse to pretend. This mission, from the very beginning, was built on faith in our people, in our future, in something greater than ourselves. And faith is not destroyed by failure. In fact, faith is proven in failure when everything seems lost and you keep going anyway. That's the kind of belief that builds nations. That's the kind of belief that writes history. So no matter how hard they come, no matter how many times they try to knock us down, we rise again and again. Because this mission was never about how many times we fall. It's about how many times we get back up. And every time we rise stronger. Every time we push forward, we carry more with us. More people, more truth, more momentum. And that's how change happens. Not in a straight line, but in waves. Waves that begin with a whisper and end in a roar. Waves that start with one person standing up and grow until the entire nation is moving forward. And we're not done. Not even close. Because no matter how dark it gets, we will keep walking toward the light. So now, as I stand before you, I say this. The mission that changed everything was never just mine. It was always ours. It was born from the pain we carried, the dreams we refused to give up, and the unshakable belief that our nation is destined for more than what we've been handed. This mission is not over. It lives in every heart that still dares to hope, in every voice that still dares to speak, and in every soul that still dares to rise. And rise, we will.